The issues affecting you. Revealed, explained, discussed. Now on WGAL 8 in Focus.
Hello, I'm Susan Shapiro. Today we're looking at voting in Pennsylvania and what the state and counties do to make sure there are no improperly registered voters on the rolls. 5 improperly registered voters, all non-citizens, were found in July in Lancaster County. News 8's Michael Fuller joins me now. We both covered this story when it happened in July. It seems like a small number of voters in the grand scheme of things, 366,000 registered voters in Lancaster County, but it's still important, and it was a big story.
Yeah, a big story, an important story, a lot to digest, but I think you make a great point. It is a rare occurrence. It's a small number of people. However, the Department of State did tell us that one of those non-citizens voted in an election. However, the state did not tell us where the person voted or in which election, but law enforcement is investigating. Now, the state blames human error, saying the person, they filled out a paper application with the county and marked that they were a non-citizen, but the county approved the registration anyway. Now, we're told that other 3 people registered through PennDOT. Again, the state blaming human error. Those 3 did not vote in any election. And you know, when we first reported this back in July and we spoke to the Lancaster County Commissioner, Ray DiAugustino, he told us that they found a 5th improperly registered voter in the county. However, we're still working to find out if that 5th person actually ever had a chance to vote.
Right, that's the key here, whether these people did get to vote. And as we have said, they have been taken off of the voter registration rolls. And the DA confirmed to News 8 the office is looking into all of this and expects us to make an announcement when the investigation is complete. So what happens to improperly registered voters? They are hopefully taken off the voter rolls. We're going to talk to the Secretary of the Commonwealth about this whole system and whether there need to be changes. We'll also talk to him about the upcoming midterms and how he can ensure whether they will be a fair, safe, and secure election.
Big questions that a lot of people want the answers to.
We're putting Pennsylvania voter rolls in focus.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus. Coverage you can count on.
Joining us now is the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Al Schmidt. Thank you so much for being here on In Focus.
Thank you, Susan.
I know you're probably in your busy season.
It is. Every year, all the time is a busy season for people involved with elections, I assure you.
Obviously, we have the midterms coming up, so
That's
that will
right.
make it even busier. We're talking about these cases in Lancaster County where the Department of State discovered 4 non-citizens had registered to vote. Then the county says it discovered a 5th non-citizen. How did the Department of State find this out?
Well, 3 of the 4 were a result of PennDOT doing a review of the motor voter program. Last year, the Auditor General of Pennsylvania did an audit of that program and found out of 200,000 cases it reviewed, 1 were a non-citizen registered to vote. So as a result of that audit, again, finding 1 out of 200,000, PennDOT, working with the Department of State, identified 3 cases, and we referred them to Lancaster for further review. The 4th case was one where the individual applied using a paper application, clearly checked that the individual was not a citizen, submitted that, and was processed by the county, so that individual was registered to vote. Of the 3 I mentioned from PennDOT, none of those individuals voted.
Now, back in the early 2000s or around 2017, when you were in Philadelphia, you discovered that there was a problem with the PennDOT system. Tell me about that and why it has still been able to happen.
Yeah, this is an issue I've been working on since 2012. In identifying cases where non-citizens, however infrequently it occurs, register to vote. And in America, every vote is precious, whether it's a vote that's cast that should not be cast or counted, or someone who is eligible to register to vote and being prevented from casting their vote and making their voice heard. In 2012, 13, 14, I worked on this issue and brought it to the Department of State's attention, where we found a relatively minor number of non-citizens who had registered to vote. So approached Department of State, to their credit, working with PennDOT, resolved this issue in Pennsylvania in 2017. So that non-citizens, when they apply for a driver's license, do not, as a part of that system, encounter the screen prompting them or asking the question, would you like to register to vote?
So how do you think this happened then, that a non-citizen was able to register, with this motor voter program?
In every one of these few cases, it was a result of a clerical error by a clerk processing an application and not selecting that the person was a non-citizen. Otherwise, out of those 200,000+ that were reviewed, again, only one was found to have that occur.
Do you think the system needs to be further updated to prevent the clerk from having to make that change?
Well, it's great to see like PennDOT reviewed that audit and has taken steps as a result of that audit. I'm a former federal auditor for the federal government. I believe in audits. I think audits are important when conducted appropriately and conducted right and responsibly, that you listen to what they have to say. And in this case, there was a finding, and PennDOT has responded appropriately to this. And again, the finding was that it occurs extremely infrequently.
But some might say one is too many, right?
Right.
Yeah.
One is too many if it's a vote that shouldn't be cast and counted, and one is too many if it's someone who's prevented from voting, who's eligible to vote.
Do you think people should provide proof of citizenship when they go to register to vote?
Well, one of the question, the very
some kind of
first question.
documentation.
So we do an identity check. So when somebody applies to register to vote and the county processes the application, there's a check on their identity because you're providing the last four of your social security number, or you're providing a driver's license, or all the rest. You're also, in that application, whether it's electronic or on paper, swearing and affirming under penalty of federal perjury charges, criminal prosecution, and if warranted, deportation from this country, that you are a citizen and you are eligible to register to vote.
Recently, the Department of Homeland Security said that Pennsylvania had some 14,000 non-citizens registered to vote. You sent a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen, and you said, I don't know where you got your methodology, basically, and you challenged his numbers. Why did you send that letter, and what was the response?
Yeah, I mean, all we received was an accusation in a letter of a possible number of people that were alleged to be ineligible to register to vote in Pennsylvania. We naturally responded by asking sort of like, where did this number come from, or how did you come up with this number? Because it's important that you take any credible allegation of voter fraud seriously, as I have throughout my entire career, nearly 15 years now, investigating cases of voter fraud or election irregularities. And it's important to understand it, to keep it in context and understand how it occurs, how infrequently it occurs, and to close any opportunities for it to occur at all, however infrequently. And in this case, we responded to Department of Homeland Security to find out more about sort of how they came up with these numbers to begin with.
And you think that number's inaccurate?
I have no reason to believe that number is accurate. We have been in dialogue with them to find out more about their methodology, which seems to be the responsible thing to do.
Do you think, making these kinds of accusations makes people less confident in our system?
I think it is incredibly important that when alleging voter fraud or election fraud or anything like that, that it be done responsibly. As infrequently as it does occur, again, it's important that the issue always be taken seriously. But it is not taking it seriously when you make wild accusations, especially on social media by people who lie for a living and are consumed by so many people who end up believing it. I mean, the good thing right now is we've probably never had so many people interested in how elections are run in America than we do right now.
That is a good thing, right?
The bad thing is that they're subjected to just so much information that is either intentionally or unintentionally false, and consume it and believe it. And that's why it's incumbent upon us and incumbent upon you and others who are trusted messengers of information, that people turn to trusted sources to make sure that the information that they're receiving and believing is true and accurate.
All right, well, stay with us, Secretary. Coming up on WGAL 8 in Focus, we'll be joined by the Director of Elections and Voter Registration from Lebanon County, and we'll talk about the upcoming midterms.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We continue our conversation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Al Schmidt, and we're now joined by Sean Drasher, who's the Director of Elections and Voter Registration in Lebanon County. Thanks for joining the conversation. We hear that counties do voter roll maintenance. What does that entail?
Well, that's what our clerks are doing every day. They come in every morning, they're looking at people who passed away the previous day, removing them from the rolls. They are updating new registration requests, people that have moved within county or hopped over to another county. So every day they are doing that. But then a couple times a year, we have larger projects where we are proactively reaching out to voters who maybe haven't voted for a couple of federal elections, and we're confirming they still live where they are, they still want to be registered, and if we don't hear from them, we don't have some sort of evidence that they are where they say they are, we're removing them from the books at that time. So.
And this is done in every county in Pennsylvania, isn't it?
It's done in every county, and it's done all year. And I know when I first ran and was elected election commissioner of Philadelphia for 10 years, people ask, well, what do you do with the rest of the year? As though elections only occur in the primary and the general, when in reality, the counties do this process all year long to make sure the records are as accurate as they can be.
Mm-hmm.
The upcoming midterms are, a lot of focus on them. How can you guarantee that they are going to be free, fair, and safe elections here in Pennsylvania?
Well, I think working with our law enforcement partners, working with our counties to make sure that you are prepared. And admittedly, there are far more things to consider now than maybe we've encountered in the past, but we do tabletop exercises, we do other preparations to make sure lines of communication are open in the event that anything gets in the way of eligible voters being able to cast their vote and make their voice heard.
Mm-hmm. And also, I've always thought these are your neighbors and your family members who are working the polls and, not for a lot of money, right?
Right, they are. In our county, we have about 560 that'll be working the polls in November for that election. And there's a pretty long waiting list to fill any open spots that pop in. A lot of counties, though, they aren't that lucky, and they're struggling to fill those spots. So we're always looking to recruit more poll workers, yeah.
I read about electronic polling books. Do we have those in Pennsylvania and in most areas? Yeah. How do they work?
So there's a couple of different platforms. Our county uses iPads, and instead of a paper book, you just have this exact same information, but it's on the iPad. So it pulls it up faster when you type in the name because you only need a couple letters and it starts bringing it up right away. It reduces the chance of someone accidentally signing a line where it's a similar name but not the exact same name, a junior or a senior name, for instance. And then post-election, this isn't something that the voter might typically worry about, but post-election, it makes our processing of the election much faster and much more accurate.
We talk about the value of these poll workers, and I think we all agree on election day, the most important people when it comes to elections, it's certainly not the Secretary of State. It's not even a county election director. As important as they are in this whole process, it's your neighbors who show up to do this. And part of retaining people to serve as poll workers is to, 1, make sure they're trained, 2, to make sure they're treated well, and 3, to make sure they're compensated. Even though they're really essentially volunteering because they're paid so little, electronic poll books really help the counties pay the people who serve on that day a little bit faster, and I think that's appreciated.
Would you like to see them get paid more?
I would like to see them get paid more, absolutely. Given the important role that they play, they are the people who make sure our democratic republic functions the way that it should.
The president has made a lot about mail-in balloting and wants it in some ways to go away. What have you found in Pennsylvania? Obviously, it was very popular during COVID, but is it still popular?
Statewide, mail-in ballot voting has been very well accepted. It is certainly down since 2020 at the COVID period, but I want to remind your viewers that that became law prior to COVID even being on the horizon. It was passed by a Republican House, it was passed by a Republican Senate, and signed by a Democratic governor, and has been really embraced in Pennsylvania as it has in states all across our country.
Yeah, we are pretty typical, and we're around 20% usage of mail-in balloting in our county, and people have very strong opinions on it. That's for sure, but it works. The way the system is set up, we are just blasting ballots out to everyone in the county. We are only giving ballots to people who prove who they are, give us in writing a request that's signed, and then we are only creating that one ballot package for that one person and not sending it to anyone else. And we are tracking that when we make it, when we're mailing it to them, when it's mailed back to us, and then we know exactly where it is in a tray in our vault while it's with us waiting for Election Day. So it's not like this image that there are all these ballots that are printed and then just shot out to the county. It's not like that at all. Everything is very individualized.
And what about canvassing those ballots? There's been a lot of talk of, trying
There
to
is.
do pre-canvassing.
So there was a lot of stuff that we asked for when these laws first came through that we thought we needed. But the thing is, now that we've had quite a few years to get our arms around this, because we were given a lot of leeway in the law and how to do canvassing and make it work, we're actually getting very good at it. What took us 14 hours before is now taking us about 3 to process on Election Day. That's fantastic. I mean, it's hard to beat that. So on Election Day, nothing is touched until Election Day, but then on Election Day, then that's canvassing is actually opening the envelopes, inspecting the ballots, running them through a tabulator, and then at the end of the day after 8 p.m. generating the results that we can then share. So it's gotten very efficient at this point.
The counties have gotten so good at processing ballots more quickly and with integrity, as well as Act 88 made more resources available for counties to purchase equipment that helps with sorting, that helps with time stamping, that helps with all sorts of other things. But just to remind people, because you hear in Pennsylvania, oh, there's a delay or whatever. There is not a delay. This is our counties doing what they're obligated to do, and they can't begin that until 7 a.m. on election morning. Plenty of other states, red states, blue states alike, can begin that process days, if not weeks in advance. So our counties are only starting at 7 a.m. Florida, I hate to look up to Florida for our own elections, but Florida is able to start that process way before us.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, the canvassing. Should it be sooner?
Because we can get through this so efficiently at this point. I know I can't speak for every county, but I'm very proud that by 9:30 or so on election night, we're done. We're done everything. The in-person stuff is all back. The mail-in ballots are all counted and posted. So you're looking about a 90-minute turnaround from close of polls to when we have our results posted.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best for the midterm elections and hope all goes well. Thank you for being here.
Thank
you, Susan.
And coming up on WGAL 8 in Focus, we'll hear from the president of the League of Women Voters in Lancaster County.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
Joining us now is Carolyn Hernandez, the president of the League of Women Voters of Lancaster County. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
The League's been around a long time in Lancaster County. What's the mission?
Our mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. And yes, we have been in Lancaster County since 1947, so we'll be celebrating our 80th anniversary next year.
Who is eligible to vote in Pennsylvania?
So you need to be a resident of Pennsylvania for 30 days. You also need to have been a citizen of the United States for 30 days, and you must turn 18 before the next election in order to register to vote.
We've heard a lot about this issue in Lancaster County, where at least 4, if not 5, non-citizens registered to vote. Did that come as a surprise to you, or what's your reaction?
No, I don't think it's necessarily a surprise. I think ultimately our voter registration process and system is a human system, and there's bound to be errors from time to time and mistakes made. But I think what's important to focus on with this issue is that those mistakes were found and fixed appropriately, and our election officials are doing their jobs very well.
And in Lancaster County, I think we have more than 360,000 registered voters.
Yes, yes, and only 14 election officials in our elections office. So they are quite overworked and deserve all of the support that we can give them.
Yeah, and as we heard, the poll workers are out there doing a big job on any election day. When you go out to educate voters, what do you do? Do you tell non-citizens they're not eligible?
Right, yes, absolutely. When we are at our voter registration tables, that is usually the first question that we ask. We want to make sure that, that the person that we're talking to is eligible to vote, because there are penalties. As part of the process, you do a test under penalty of perjury and potential jail time and hefty fines that you are in fact a citizen, and attesting to so. So we want to make sure that everybody understands that and you know, is on the right side of that that situation.
Yeah, that's what we heard from the Secretary of the Commonwealth. It's a serious offense if you're caught doing that. What about voter turnout and, you know, a lot of people who don't vote?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to continue to spread the message that your voice does matter. If you're not voting, you are essentially giving your voice to somebody else that will make those decisions for you. So it is important that we vote, and that we vote in every election. In Pennsylvania, we vote twice a year, every year. And a lot of people don't even realize that.
And we have an important election, the midterm elections coming up. How is your group getting ready for that?
Well, we will be holding a number of voter registration events. We have National Voter Registration Day coming up on September 15th, and we will be all over the county doing several events, both out in the public, outside of Central Market, for example. We'll also be in several schools over the lunch hour, trying to capture those newly turned 18-year-old voters that we've recently heard are not registering at the levels that we'd like them to. So we will just be out in the community encouraging people to get involved and be engaged and educate themselves on the election process and the candidates that are running to represent them.
Why do you think they're not registering at the levels you'd like them to be?
You know, from what I've heard, some have simply said, nobody ever asked me. So we're asking. You know, a lot of times people don't know how to do it. The other issue in Pennsylvania is that we don't have pre-registration. So when somebody goes into the DMV to get their driver's license, they're 16 years old. So they're not just turning 18 before the next election. So you don't renew your license for another 4 years. So essentially they're not hitting that DMV system for another 4 years when they're 20. So, you know, we do advocate for pre-registration that would allow them to register when they're 16 at the DMV, and then it would not kick in until they were 18.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The last day to register to vote for the general election is October 19th. And remember, Election Day is November 3rd. Thank you for joining us for WGAL 8 in Focus. For all of us at WGAL, I'm Susan Shapiro. And join us again next Sunday morning at 11 o'clock for WGAL 8 in Focus right after NBC's Meet the Press. And you can watch each episode of In Focus plus WGAL's latest newscasts, original programming, and more. Just download the Very Local app and stream for free on Roku and Amazon Fire TV.